Hello, I'm Hal Lublin.
And I'm Mark Gagliardi.
Since the dawn of humanity, one issue has gone unsettled. With the fate of the world in the balance, we're here to settle, once and for all, best excuse.
That's right. Don't worry, everyone. We got this.
Podcasts should have a theme song. Podcasts should not have a theme song. Yes, they should. No, they shouldn't. They sound good. Yeah, but people are just going to skip past it. You know what? You're right. We got this.
That'll be what I call. Right now, the working title is Garf Gab. All right, let's start.
Oh, my God.
You know, Stephen Cook, there is a saying. The saying is, be careful what you ask for, because you just might get it, even if you're kidding around in the Facebook group. So when you write, can't wait for the best excuse episode because we had to skip last week, then Mark sees that and he goes, let's do it. And now here we are.
Best excuse.
There's no excuse for not putting this episode out. We have to imagine if this never saw the light of day, what would the excuse be?
Yeah. This is, and this is not about that particular week where we did not have an episode. This is about just in general. Let's talk about excuses. And do we want to come up with is our answer going to be one very specific excuse, or is it going to be a type of excuse?
I think we need to
if our version of the best excuse is, see, I went outside and I look up and there in the sky is a spaceship. We're not creating an insane story.
No, this is our job.
Yeah.
Our job is to choose from things that already exist, not to make something that doesn't exist.
Look, the best excuse could be, this is a wide open topic.
We're not creators. We are evaluators.
Ooh, that's my favorite comic book, The Evaluator.
The Evaluators.
Yeah.
This should cost $5 next month on The Evaluators. It's just Antiques Roadshow. Oh, that's my favorite.
I would love the comic book of Antiques Roadshow and or the Marvel movie.
When's the last time you got this jacket appraised? And where did you pick it up? This is a family heirloom.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I found it in a dumpster next to a phone booth.
Well, I have something to tell you.
What's that?
This is Clark Gable's jacket from the premiere of 1939's Gone with the Wind.
Really? Yeah. Oh, that's a problematic film. I don't think I want this jacket anymore.
He wore this, and inside are a bunch of vaguely and overtly racist statements that you have. Do you know how much this jacket is worth?
Not much to me. You can just have it.
At auction in the right place, wink, wink, this could go for upwards of $500.
Hold on. Now let's talk about this right place, wink, wink. Terrible.
See, money talks.
Terrible, Hal.
Mark.
What?
Do you feel like you're the king of excuses? Do you think that's fair
none
to say?
taken?
I didn't say whether or not I meant offense. Nice try. No, do you feel like excuses are something that you use often? Because I know I do. There are times where
Sure. I have to use
fabricate
excuses.
them, but I'm sometimes go ahead and answer the question. I have too much to say. Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, good.
I do feel but I never in my mind think I'm coming up with excuses.
Right.
What I think I am doing, and I still in many cases believe that I am doing, is offering reasons.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Excuse is, right?
Yes.
That is the reason why this is happening.
Right. But so I guess that's a big question to ask. What is the difference between a reason and an excuse? I've heard if you give more than two reasons, they're excuses. You've heard that before, I'm sure.
Like two different reasons for something?
Yeah. If you're giving two different reasons, then now you're just coming up with excuses.
That's true.
But if there's one reason, I was late. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think maybe in this case, we're talking about excuses, like something you come up with for why you don't have your homework. Because the answer is never I didn't want to do it. This is boring and I don't see how it will apply to my life outside of this year of schooling.
Yeah.
It's always
the dog ate it.
Generally, the dog ate my homework. I was sick.
Mm-hmm.
The dog was sick. I ate my homework. My parents ate the dog. There's a lot of eating going on.
There is a lot of eating. And also, I may need to call a social worker to come over to your house if your dog ate your homework and then your parents ate your dog.
Yes. I wish you would. I wish you'd done that before the dog was eaten. because I love that dog.
This is really dark, really fast.
Well, that's the nature of excuses. It's a dark, dark hole into which you plunge to try to get yourself out of stuff. Have you, now being honest, and you've been on this earth long enough that there must be instances from decades ago where you were invited to something you just didn't want to do it. You didn't want to go. You had committed to something, you didn't want to do it. Have you ever come up with an excuse to get out of it? Or do you always tell the truth about why you're not going?
If the truth hurts someone's feelings, I will tell a little white lie, generally.
So
you know what I mean?
Telling the truth of, I think your party will be boring and I just don't want to go.
You know what? It's rare that I will say no to a party. I love parties. I love going out.
Sure.
And I am happy to, I'm not the person that like looks for a reason to not go to a party. Honestly, for me, the big thing is, and I could just kind of blanket say this now because in my life, it's become such a thing. And you know me well enough to know this is I am terrible about keeping a schedule. And so often I will double book myself by accident. Can you do this thing? Sure. I'd love to. Can you on Monday night? Great. A week later. Hey, can you do this thing on Monday night? Sure. That sounds great. For completely forgetting and having not put it into my calendar. Frequently my excuse, and in this case is one where I will use the truth is, I'm sorry. I'm an idiot. I double booked myself and had a previous engagement already that I had committed to.
Yeah. I mean, I do that to a lesser extent than you. Because I do keep a calendar. What I get bad about sometimes I get asked to do something that I'm so excited and happy to be asked that I say yes. And then I forget to put it in my calendar.
Yeah.
And if I don't put it in my calendar, when I go to schedule the next thing, then I forget. And so I have to take the most recently scheduled thing and say, I'm sorry, I committed to something else and move. I mean, I had to do that this coming tomorrow night.
Really?
I had scheduled a 2-episode record for a podcast that thankfully the co-hosts were happy enough to move for me, but it was because I had committed to another recording tomorrow night.
Yeah.
That I had forgotten about because I hadn't put it in. I have to put it in my calendar. You have to. There are also times where, and I enjoy going to parties too in general. Like I like seeing people. I'm a fairly social person, even though I'm also a homebody. The last couple of years has kind of thrown that into disarray where I'm, especially now when we're in the middle of yet another surge, like I'm less likely to want to go to a large group gathering.
Right.
And so what happens is I get very excited initially. And then as it gets closer, I might get anxious or I might be tired or feel overwhelmed. You know, there are times where you have plans on the weekend, but the week is so just sort of kicks your butt and you're exhausted. And during the week, you're like, oh, if I can get to Saturday, then I will have a day where I can sleep in. I don't have to worry about anything. I can just sort of laze around. And then you realize you have made plans. And then those plans become, oh, I would love to see this person. I'm also really tired. So in those cases, there are times where I won't lie. I'll just say like, hey, can we push to next week? I can't do it. So I guess I'm not as much of an excuse person.
Yeah.
But of the classic excuses that exist, do you have, like the worst one is just, I forgot. That's the worst one.
But then is that an excuse or is that the truth? And that was one of the questions that I wanted to ask starting off, because this is a tough one because our show, it's objective answers to subjective questions.
Right.
Is the best excuse the truth? And does it cease to become an excuse if you're telling the truth?
What if it hurts somebody's feelings?
That's what I come back to from before. Yeah.
I think an excuse in general, whatever it is intended to disengage you from something or provide an explanation for something that will create as few, the reason why you say my dog ate my homework is the beauty of that as an excuse. If it were ever to work, which it does not, is I did the work that you asked me to do. And I would have it here if it weren't for the fact that my dog ate it.
A factor outside of my control.
Yes.
Screwed up this thing I had every intention of doing. So I guess what we've been talking about leading up to this is intention. And if your intention is, and we've also been talking a lot about interpersonal things, like you mentioned a party or hanging out with somebody when you're just dead tired. You're like, I was supposed to get brunch with you, but I'm just dead to the world right now. Can we push to another time? That's not an excuse. That is a factually accurate and honest, truthful reason to want to reschedule plans. I think for the sake of fun in this, I think we could take the personal out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And now it becomes an excuse for either not having gotten your work done that you need to get done, or being late for work, or not showing up for work. These are things that nobody's going to take personally. They're going to have consequences, but they're not necessarily going to be something that people take personally.
All right, I got one for you.
Okay.
I got a flat tire on the way.
Perfect example. Now, I think we can break this down into a couple of categories.
Yes.
And I think one of them is, here's how it would break down in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
You're dealing with something else, right? I can't deal with this thing I'm supposed to deal with, either going to work or finishing homework or whatever my obligation, my non-personal obligation is.
Mm-hmm.
Something else is factoring into this.
Yeah.
So I think our categories are outside forces, act of God kind of things.
Okay.
Personally medical things, or personal within myself. So external forces within myself, or being a caretaker to another entity that needs this attention more than you need my attention right now.
Okay. So
it was like, it made me think of an Onion article from a few years ago. It was, pizza cook's sixth grandmother dies. You know what I mean? Like, like these are excuses of an outside force. I've got to take my, dog to the vet. Something else has happened.
Yes, yeah, my dog threw up. My kid is sick.
Right. Then other outside forces that don't involve caretaking would be, I got a flat tire. I was in a car accident. So it seems to be car related. My dog ate my car. My parents ate my car, which had, already been, in an accident recently. So
we got a new dog that ate my parents, but my parents got out by lighting a match inside of the dog and smoking the dog out.
Yeah.
Now we had to take that dog to the vet because it has smoke all inside of its belly.
Yeah. And we also have to get dog Nicorette because now this dog has a taste for smoke.
My car ate my house. All these things are major
plumbing problems. Plumbing problems is a big one.
Yeah, a pipe burst.
Pipe burst is a great excuse.
There's poop everywhere.
Because what you want your excuse to be, I think an ideal excuse is something that is not checkable. Or if it is technically checkable, the person who would be checking it does not want to check it.
Well, when you say generally, I'm not feeling well.
Yeah.
And I have used that to not go to work, but I only use it when I'm actually not feeling well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't lie. Like that is something I don't mess with because not that I believe 100% in karma, but I also think like crying wolf about being sick is not good. Now I will also, this is even in the before times. If I had like a sore throat or something like that, I would just ask to work remotely. Because I think one of the rudest things that you can do is show up to work sick.
Absolutely.
Pre-2020, before that, I would tell coworkers if they showed up sick and were coughing, so I'd be like, go home. All you're going to do is like knock out more people in this office. It's not, you're not doing what you think you're doing. But in general, to say I'm not feeling well, if you have to meet somebody for lunch or whatever, then, if somebody tells me that, I never assume that they're lying. I will give them the benefit of the doubt. And my thought is always like, oh, I hope you feel better.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I'm not feeling well is also a good sliding scale one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, depending on how badly you did want to do something or had how great your intention of doing a thing was, could be in direct proportion to how bad you have to feel to not do it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Something that I really didn't want to do to begin with. If I wake up and go, oh, well, I'm too sick to do it. You know what I mean? If it's something I really want to do, it's like, I wish I could, but I clearly have a cold. I can't.
When I was in school, I used to say I was sick all the time in like junior high school. And I always prayed I would have a fever so I could be sent home because I just didn't want to be at school, whether it was social or whatever it was. And so I think I used up all of my cry wolf about being sick. At
sixth grandmother dies. Yeah.
But I will say, like, I've also done the opposite, which is go in with an infection I knew couldn't spread to other people because I'd missed so many days that my boss at the time was like, sure, I'm missing a lot of days. Meanwhile, I still have a fever. I'm still in pain. There's bleeding happening, but I went in for the day for the meeting.
You did the thing that you just said that you don't do?
I needed to show no, because I didn't have something that was contagious.
Gotcha.
But it was something that was causing me a lot of discomfort and suffering. But I went in and then my boss was like, oh, you look terrible. You should go home. Yeah. But that was like, so that in that case, I did the opposite. But if I have something that I think is even closely contagious, I leave. I leave the office. Say, I'm going to finish up from home. Now I have the ability, I've worked remote now for 2 years. So that situation's is even different. Like if I don't feel great, I'll generally just work through it because I'm already at home.
Yeah.
But that is like an all-time excuse for anything. I don't want to go to a party. I can't go to a dinner for whatever reason. Generally not I can't think of a time it was personal to the other person at all. It is always just my ability to motivate myself to get up and go out and do something.
Yeah. And I think that the sliding scale of that is valuable. I think the vagueness of it is valuable. Is there any benefit in getting specific? Meaning, like, if I call my boss and say, I'm not coming into work today, I don't feel well. And they go, well, we really could use you because you're putting a lot of people out. So like, I don't know if, and then you go, I have explosive diarrhea and have for the last 12 hours and I don't see it going anywhere. Then they immediately go, oh no, don't come into work.
Yeah, I've been specific in like, it's cause at that point, the excuse is just the reason I'm not going. And that's either acceptable to someone or not. Doesn't matter whether it's true or not.
Right.
I don't think an excuse that has to be a lie. But I've said the closest I'll get for work is to say I have food poisoning. And that lets them know that anybody who's had food poisoning knows it's acute, but it also will be like, I always go like, I have food poisoning. Hopefully I'll be in tomorrow. I'll let you know. And like, I'm going to see how I feel in the morning and then let you know. But generally, like, I think details are good in that they might give a timeline for stuff as far as work is concerned. And for personal things, it's just like, if it's a weekend meeting or something, you just push. You can just push, like, let me let you know when I feel better and we'll get back together.
It's also, this is a weird topic for us to do because I like to think of us as scrupulous fellas who are not going to lie willy-nilly.
Correct.
That said, I think in this particular episode, we have to give ourselves a little bit of permission.
If you were going to lie, what would be the best lie?
You were going to lie, I think if you're going to lie, you don't have to have the explosive diarrhea. But if they're really prying and want to, dig in, give them something that shuts them down. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You also want to give them, like I mentioned before, you want to give them something that they can't check on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they can't check on it.
They're not going to check on that. If you say, I'm sorry, I can't come in, I was in a car accident, and then you drive your perfectly fine car to work the next day, then something is amiss. Flat tire is a great one because a tire gets replaced. But a flat tire is not a great one because a flat tire is not how you get out of a thing. It's just how you get out of being late to a thing.
I'll tell you how scrupulous I am. When I had my car accident a few years ago and couldn't go back to the office, I called them and told them I'd been I was just in a car accident. I need to get stuff sorted out. I'm not coming back in today. And I forget who my boss was at the time, but they were very understanding. But I felt guilty because I was like, this sounds fake.
Even though it wasn't.
Because I knew I was already out for the morning because I had an appointment. I was like, I have an appointment I have to go to. Very understanding about that. I'll be in later, and part of that comes from gaining the trust of having worked for a long time. But then when I got in a car accident on my way back, I was like, oh, this feels terrible. This feels fake. Yeah. And also car accident is something, I had to go to physical therapy for months afterwards, but that does feel like it can't be too big. The excuse can't be too big.
Can't be too big. And also I love that you had a day where, remember more than one reason's an excuse, but you literally had 2 reasons.
Well, I had a reason why I was going to be.
You had a thing in the morning and then a car accident.
Yeah. I was going to be in at lunch, which is 100% true.
Yeah.
And then I got into an accident. I didn't even get into an accident. I was sitting and waiting and somebody ran into me and sent me into another car, which is like the worst kind. Like it's a
whiplash.
It's absolutely not your fault. And whiplash, glasses went everywhere. Didn't know what had happened. Disoriented. You name it. Yeah. But I think a car accident is too big of an excuse because you just don't want it to be that big. It can't be a big excuse if you're going to make an excuse.
But is there a world in which making a gigantic excuse gets the reaction of, well, there's no way they could have made that up?
No, because it's something you will follow up on later. You can't, it has to be something.
It can't be a good story.
You won't ask questions in the beginning. You won't go, hey, whatever happened to blah, blah, blah. It can't come up later. You can't leave a trail.
You're right. Yeah.
Car accident is a perfect example of that, because you go, hey, how's your car? How are you feeling? Did you hear anything? Is your insurance covering it? All that stuff. So we've established some ground rules of the kind of excuse we need to come up with. We know the neighborhood we're working in. Let's take a break. And when we come back, we will hone in on which of the existing excuses out there in the world, which one is the perfect one to use for any situation. But first, here is a little bit of information about some of the other fine shows on the Max Fun Network.
Hi, my name is Graham Clark, and I'm one half of the podcast Stop Podcasting Yourself, a show that we've recorded for many, many years. And at the moment, instead of being in person, we're recording remotely, and you wouldn't even notice. You don't even notice the lag.
That's right, Graham. And the great thing about this... Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay,
go ahead.
And you can listen to us every week on MaximumFun.org.
Or wherever you get your podcasts.
Your podcasts.
Hi, it's me, Dave Hill, from before, here to tell you about my brand new show on Maximum Fun, the Dave Hill Good Time Hour, which combines my old Maximum Fun show, Dave Hill's Podcasting Incident, with my old radio show, The Damn Dave Hill Show, into one new futuristic program from the future. If you like delightful conversation with incredible guests, technical difficulties, and actual phone calls from real-life listeners, you've just hit a street called easy. I'm also joined by my incredible co-host, the boy criminal Chris Gersbeck. Say hi, Chris.
Hey, Dave. It's really great.
That's enough, Chris. And New Jersey chicken rancher Des. Say hi, Des.
Hey, Dave.
The Dave Hill Good Time Hour. Brand new episodes every Friday on Maximum Fun.
Plus, the show's not even an hour. It's 90 minutes.
Take that, stupid rules.
We nailed it.
Okay. So no car accident. No tornado hit my house. No, my dog ate my other dog.
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
What if you use a very small thing?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying I've done this before. You've used a very small thing and you have both made it vague and blown it out of proportion.
Okay. Go ahead. Give your example, please.
Example. My brother calls me and says, hey, can you do me a quick favor? I need you to, my phone is dying. But my car broke down on the side of the road. Can you call AAA for me? Something, mild and semi-mundane like that. Becomes, I can't come to work today. I have a family emergency.
That feels like,
vague and overblown. At what point does that become a lie? Again, scrupulous gentleman.
I think it's, it
feels
bending,
dirty even saying.
It's a dirty bending of the truth.
It's a real
Just the
bending.
way you said it, you can hear your eyebrows raising. I mean, I can see it happening, but you can hear it. I have a family emergency.
Family emergency.
Well, if there's one thing we've learned from Dominic Toretto, it's that nothing's more important than family.
That's true. Yeah.
But I do think that's the kind of thing that will come up later.
Yeah.
Someone will go, hey, is your family okay? I hope that emergency worked out all right.
I want my excuse. I think you're right. I think the perfect excuse is instantaneous dismissal of all of the details.
Yeah.
It is, I am not going to be there for this reason. Okay. If you add too many details on the end of an excuse, or if it's too big a thing, or if anything like that, assuming that this is a embellished and or completely fabricated story, you don't want anything like the thing I would feel guilty about is if I was eliciting sympathy. You know what I mean? If I was eliciting more sympathy than, oh, that sucks. Yeah, come in when you can. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want someone to actually worry about me and or my pet and or my vehicle and or my home or whatever. You know what I mean?
Then I think the answer is to keep it as vague as possible. I was going to say, like, I'm feeling under the weather is generally a good, because when you say it, that could be, it's generally mild, right? Mm-hmm. I have a little bit of a cold or something. In today's world, that triggers too many panic alarms.
Yeah.
Like, oh, did you get tested? What's going on? Where were you? Did you go somewhere? Are you feeling, can you smell? Can you taste? Blah, 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 blah. Maybe the best one, and I don't mean to cut off the debate, but I'm just trying to throw out there, is the best excuse. I had to deal with something at the house.
I think the best excuse is going to be, depending on how close you are to whoever you are giving the excuse to, how much do they deserve? You know what I mean?
I mean, excuse by its very nature is just enough.
Yeah.
It's just
I'm dealing with
conversation.
Is it? Yeah. Is it?
You want
could it be as simple as even taking home out of there? Could it be as simple as I'm dealing with something?
Yeah, I think when you're,
is that too vague?
Too vague. Cause then it's like, I'm dealing with something. I have a bunch of friends over and they're reading me letters. That's like, I'm about to go into rehab, which is a very big deal.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. My first thought was like, oh, that sounds like a fun party. Or everybody writes letters to each other and then we read all our letters to each other.
It's a letter party. It's an American Greetings new thing they're trying to get off the ground.
I love that. Oh, guys, it's letter day.
And you can host your own leather parties.
Ooh.
A bunch of leather daddies reading letters. It's great. You feel good about yourself and you learn something about maybe a portion of the culture you didn't know about before.
Yeah, look, this letter's from Tom and it's postmarked from Finland. Oh my, these pictures are graphic. This letter is just drawings.
I didn't know that many straps could go on a vest. Anyway. Yeah, I think I'm dealing with something just sounds too
vague.
That sounds either like something bigger is going on, like that's the last thing you're going to say before the tie goes back in your mouth and the kidnapper hangs up the phone, or it just feels like you're not dealing with anything. What you're dealing with is not wanting to come to
not having finished this project.
It's also a question of when we legitimately had something go down yesterday morning that threw off a bunch of plans. So we had to, it wasn't an excuse. It was explaining to people what happened. And it's like, you feel terrible. And we had to we gave updates later and it all turned out fine. But like an excuse is the thing that there's no conversation about it. It's just, and you have to give it I think part of the key is giving it far ahead enough that it's not like, I don't like to cancel something last minute. I really hate doing that.
Yeah, me too.
If I have to do that, it's something has happened. The good thing about a party is sometimes you just don't have to go. If you don't RSVP, you don't have to go. That's a fun.
I love a party.
Sometimes I forget to RSVP. I get asked to do something and then I'm like, oh, I need to talk to Jennifer and see. And then I get really busy and then I get followed up with and I feel awful that anyone has to follow up with me. Like it's ridiculous. I feel irresponsible and there's no excuse at that moment. It's just, I completely forgot. This is on me. Let me go find out right now.
Yeah.
And then if it's a no, I just say I can't, I just say no.
Yeah. And that's, for personal stuff, for not necessarily personal or non-personal, for obligations.
Yeah.
For obligations, I'm trying to figure out how to put this. For an interpersonal thing, sometimes it's better to give a little more information. For a professional thing, it really is about determining how much of it is their business. If the excuse is for a real thing that's happening.
Right. So then what's the best excuse?
I think there is a look, we're doing this episode right now and we cannot divorce the time that we are living in from the episode we are doing today. Even though someone may listen to this episode 10 years from now, 150 years from now, when they pull the digital copy out of a time capsule and figure out how to read the ones and zeros and then listen to this episode. We are here in 2022. I think that in all of the horrific things that this pandemic has given the world and taken from the world, I think there's one good thing, which is it has given everyone a perfect excuse. And the perfect excuse is this. I've had an exposure.
Oh, Lord.
It's all you have to say. It's not, I'm sick. They don't have to worry about you personally. All you have to say is, yesterday, a friend of mine that I met with a couple of days ago told me they tested positive for COVID.
Oh my God.
I've had a COVID exposure. 0 other questions get asked. It instantly becomes, don't come in until you get tested and you know that you're okay. And you are keeping us safe here. it is vague enough that it's probably happened at any point to everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I could say, oh, I had an exposure to COVID yesterday. I can't come until I get tested.
You could just say I went to Disney.
Yeah. I could say I went to the grocery store.
True.
But all you have to say is I was potentially exposed to COVID. This is terrible. This makes me feel like a bad person.
I was
even
Hall
saying
H.
that this could be used as a excuse.
I was at Glastonbury.
Oh, God. I was at the All-Star game.
Yeah,
I was on the subway to the All-Star game.
I was at a rave. Yeah, I mean, that is certainly there's no more, but that does beg follow-ups. It's like, hey, did you test?
Does it?
Yeah. Are you positive? Are you feeling okay? You check up with them in a couple days. I would.
Sure.
I would 100% check up.
I would also still get the test because as soon as I said that, I would be like, well, I'm lying if I don't get the test now. And also I should probably get the test anyway.
That's right.
I don't like how diabolical this episode makes me sound.
This is really bad. I think, you know what?
What?
Can we just say that the best excuse is the most ridiculous one?
Why is that?
Because my dog ate my homework. Because it's so dumb.
I thought we were trying to come up with,
and it came from a time. I'm changing tack.
Okay.
And here's why.
Because we don't want to reward lying.
We don't want to reward lying. Like, we're both trying to figure out a way to be okay with being deceptive. And it's not.
We're not.
Either of us.
Yeah.
Which is why maybe the best excuse is the most hilarious one.
Or the best excuse is the truth.
That came from a time where if your dog ate your homework, like, you know, we didn't have, I think that phrase comes from a long enough ago time where it's like, you didn't have a ton of paper hanging around.
Right.
So if your dog ate it, it was gone. You weren't going to do it again.
And it was also hand done on a worksheet.
Yeah. So I love that because it doesn't work anymore unless your dog ate an iPad or chewed up your laptop.
Yeah. Or your dog, or by my dog, you mean the virus inside my computer.
Yeah. My dog.exe.
Yeah. I opened this up. Oh, look, Hungry Dog. What's Hungry Dog? Is that a game? Oh, God.
I just love that. It's kind of a throwback, but it's something that we're still aware of. It just has become like, my dog ate my homework. Like, it's just become sort of a throw off excuse.
Yeah. It's not expecting anyone to, my dog ate my homework does not expect you to believe it. Mm-hmm. It is saying to the other person, this is an excuse.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, I am making an excuse. Please don't ask any more follow-up questions. Know that I feel a little bad about whatever I have done or am avoiding doing or whatever this is.
Yeah.
But we both know this is an excuse.
Yes.
That's kind of fun. I kind of want to start using it. Like, anytime I need an excuse, my dog ate my homework.
Why didn't we have an episode last week?
My dog ate my homework.
That's right. People of the world, you got to train your dogs better. Eating homework is not good for the dogs either. They're not supposed to eat pencil lead or graphite or ink from a pen. Paper's not good for them. Keep your dogs away from your homework. That's what, I mean, it's just these dogs. Feed your dogs. If you feed your dogs and give them treats for being good puppies, then this won't happen. You won't have a bunch of dogs running out there and eating your homework. So just leash your dog in public and keep your dog away from your homework. It's bad for the homework. It's bad for the dog. But boy, does it make for one hell of an excuse. Asked and answered.
I'm glad we evaded that one so well.
Me too. I felt
in an
terrible.
Episode all about evasion.
Because I'm sitting there going, like, you could say you're sick to go from work. I'm like, but I've never used that excuse I've worked at the same place for 12 and a half years and I've never faked a sick day because I won't do it. Like, if I'm actually sick, I'll just take a sick day.
Yeah.
If I need a day off, I'll ask for a day off.
Yeah. I only did it once. I only faked sick once. And I was desperately hoping that whoever got the voicemail, it's easier on a voicemail. I was desperately hoping that whoever got that voicemail did not hear the sound of the boat or the water and just heard the sound of my vague coughing.
Anyway,
Terrible.
I don't feel good. That was my stomach.
Woohoo! That was a water skier in my stomach.
Oh, I'm really not feeling well. As you can hear.
Oh, well, this topic is closed, but there are many more topics to discuss. So please reach out to us on Twitter, or
you can email us at wegotThisPodcast@gmail.com, or go to our Facebook group. What's your favorite excuse? Facebook.com/groups/WeGotThisPodcast. Thank you to producer Ken Plume, host of the fine shows A Bit of a Chat with Ken Plume and Force 5. Also, thank you to researcher Kate McManus, graphic designer Uri Kelman, and QA engineer Jen Alba.
And thanks, of course, to our musicians, Jonathan Dinerstein and Mike Furman, for our score and theme song, respectively. And thanks to you, the people of the world, for giving Hal and I a chance to sit down and talk about things that we may or may not do, like make excuses. No, we don't, it turns out. And again, I'm really sorry that we didn't have an episode last week. I was dealing with something. For Hal Lublin, I'm Mark Gagliardi.
For Mark Gagliardi, I'm Hal Lublin. Don't worry, everybody.
We got this.
We got this.
MaximumFun.org.
Comedy and culture.
Artist owned. Audience supported.